Frak, this podcast, come and listen to us talk about Battlestar Galactica. It's a show that we're talking about. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am your videographic, photogenic host, Jesse Gender, and I'm joined.
Okay, well, hold on. Are you submitting both of those together, or only one of those?
Photogenic. I'll put him lock in photogenic.
Photogenic. I was gonna say, are you sure you want to burn through two in one go?
Yeah, no, it's probably bad. Though I am worried now that I've used photogenic before. And I am joined as always by,
It's Vera.
Yeah.
And folks now get to start seeing us if you're taking this in on YouTube, which the plan is now for this to be the regular thing. Quick peek behind the curtain real quick. We talked about having this be the normal way that we would do the
you keep
the YouTube,
going. I'm just making
YouTube
myself
version
look pretty while you do this.
Of this. I initially rejected it out of concern of having to be on.
Yeah,
like
we shoot this like late on a Monday night. We're tired.
Well, it's not just that. Like I fidget with stuff. My eyes, like I have ADHD. Like and I don't want to look bored or distracted.
And I want to be reading from a document too. So yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately, what I have been doing for people who only listen to the podcast and don't watch the YouTubes, I had been grabbing screenshots of the episode and putting them in as we talked about it. And that just made the editing process take so long. And these episodes are getting so long. I will take having to be on late on a Monday over the amount of time it was taking me to edit them the way I was doing it.
And to be fair, you always look fairly nice for our recordings. I look like a schlub and am usually in pajamas because like I'll be in pajamas for most of the day. I went out for lunch with somebody today. So that's the only reason I even look nice right now. So
I mean, I'm not promising I'm going to be this done up, but like all I have to do is plan to do other filming on Monday and leave my makeup on.
Yeah, it's smart. It's the same thing where it's like I can't plan around having filming on Tuesday because that's the day the leaf blowers come around here. So it's like, yep, just Tuesday is not a filming day. Learned that the hard way. So yeah. So Monday's just a look pretty day. But you always look pretty, I should say.
Damn right I do.
A hard thing to do. And I sometimes look at you and wonder if you're my salvation because of how pretty you are. And speaking of which, we are talking today about the Battlestar Galactica episode, A Measure of Salvation. Huzzah! Because
we should probably address why there aren't going to be comments.
Yeah. Well, see, I was going to transition and then mention. So as you drink on camera now, with eggnog. Ooh, look at you.
'Tis the season.
It is. I need to get some eggnog.
Maple rum.
Yeah, which I need to get some more. Send me some more, Vera. But yes, listeners, sadly today, and Vera will explain more why, but we will not have comments today because YouTube sucks, if Vera wishes to explain.
Yeah, so the longer version than Jesse put it, but the shorter version from the whole story is that on one of my 3 channels, I got a community strike for a reason I disagree with, but whether or not I think
YouTube
it was warranted,
is a piece of shit.
Yeah. Whether or not I think it was warranted doesn't really matter. When you get a community strike, not a warning, but a strike, and understand community strike, not a copyright strike, you are actually barred from uploading for a week. And they tell you very explicitly that you can't upload on any channel. And if they catch you uploading somewhere else or starting a new channel to try and circumvent the ban, like it is creator specific, not channel specific. So I missed a Saturday on my main channel for the first time in I don't know how long. And I have not been able to upload anything into Break Room of Geeks where these usually go. That having been said, it's not going to throw us off by a week because this will all be sorted by the time people hear this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for
The reason
Jesse's,
why we're not listening to reading comments.
For Jesse's clarification, I'm going to have the podcast just go up on Wednesday, and then we'll be back to Monday as normal after that. So it'll be 2 days late on the channel.
Yeah. So for listeners, still put up your comments. Well, you'll already will have. I'll try and read for next week. I'll try and read 2. I'll go sort through both of them, and we'll try and talk through both of them if we can, if there's anything interesting. So have interesting things to say, or have had interesting things to say, I guess.
Will have had.
Yes, will have had. Go back in time and have interesting things to say at the time the episode releases, but before we record our next one. Yes.
Anyways, are fun.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite extracts from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is where Douglas Adams says, one of the most difficult parts of time travel is not whether or not you accidentally become your own mother or father. There's nothing wrong with that a well-adjusted family can't learn to deal with. It's actually a matter of grammar.
Yeah. We'll have had. We'll
have an on when.
Well, save us from that because we are talking about A Measure of Salvation today, the episode, and let us get into our recap. Let us get.
You are on a roll right off the bat. Dang.
Let us get us into our recap.
Dicketh.
We start off the episode with a bunch of the Galactica crew in Vipers and Raptors and such, including Athena and Apollo, heading over to the infected base ship that they found at the end of last episode near the Lion's Head Nebula. So,
yep.
They go on there.
And it immediately get tense because I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Athena's about to set foot on that ship. Okay.
Yep. I did have a wonder here because we see a bunch of dead Cylon Raiders, and I'm like, I wonder if they because we kind of saw that the Raiders were dead at the end of during last episode when Baltar went there, and that was before the Cylons made the decision to move the resurrection ship. So I wondered if the Cylon Raiders got resurrected. Obviously not, considering the stuff that goes on this episode, but it just made me think about it.
Yeah.
Anyways, they go on board the ship. They find a bunch of dead, infected Cylons.
Sorry, you got my brain going.
Yeah.
In my mind, whatever process resurrects the Raiders has to be more involved than just the resurrection ship, because the resurrection ship is just a whole bunch of humanoid bodies. So while we know the Raiders can be resurrected, it has to either be a different process, need a different specialized ship, or just it has to be something slightly else, because nothing from what we saw of those ships, it's just wall to wall new bodies.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Raiders are.
Yeah. I wonder if they have just a bunch of Raiders on the base ship, and when one dies, it just uploads because it's considered quote unquote more animalistic. So maybe it's simpler and they don't need the whole apparatus of the ship to deal with it. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, we're just getting speculative.
Yeah,
now.
We're just speculating. Anyways, but that would make the Raiders base ship specific, which would be interesting. Anyways, they go on board the base ship, find a bunch of dead infected humanoid Cylons. I will say I like the look of this. It's the base ship is yellowy and sickly. It kind of looks kind of interesting.
Yeah, especially compared to the ship that we've been seeing Baltar on, which has mostly been blue and white in tint.
Yes. So I like that. Another thing that we see too, one small note, Apollo calls Athena Sharon briefly for a second. So Sharon then corrects himself and says Athena. So he's still getting used to getting over her dead name,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying.
He's doing his work.
To be fair.
Yeah. But then Athena connects into the base base ship system. It's also gooey as opposed to the water that we see on Baltar's ship. So again, more infected. Nastiness.
Yeah, it's sort of gelatinous.
Yes. But then we see that there are 5 living Cylons still on this ship. And they're in pretty bad shape, and they all sort of crawl over into a circle together, and they're all different models. And they start praying. Athena goes over to one of the models that looks just like her. I keep forgetting your models. 3s?
8.
I keep forgetting. 8.
8, dude.
8. I know. I keep forgetting the numbers. 8. That one calls Athena a traitor, but also warns her to keep away and tells them about the beacon causing the sickness that infected them. And Athena, looks at her hand and realizes she got some of the goo on it. And Apollo sort of calls Adama and says, "Oh, we've all been exposed."
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hell of an opener.
It is. It is. Yeah, it is also nice too because I actually didn't even really think about because I forgot about this little piece. Is like, oh, like yeah, they might also they just naturally assume that they're also infected. I would have thought like, oh, it's the Cylons instantaneously. I'm glad the show doesn't make that assumption. I didn't even think about it for a hot second.
Yeah, I mean, like it would have been a very foolish assumption for the show to make.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there's part of me that
100%.
wants to say it's part of me that wants to say it was foolish of them to send people on this ship as in open air in the first place, except that they do know that the Cylons also breathe oxygen. So it's like it actually wasn't an unreasonable assumption on their part to assume it would be safe for them to be
and
there.
presumably, I guess they didn't think like, oh, this is going to be an infection, and they all came over in suits, in breathing suits, because they were in their Vipers and such, as we saw.
Yeah,
and so like they probably got on the ship, they're like, oh, breathable air, let's take it all off, sort of thing, because we don't really see that part of it. Anyways, after the opening credits, we cut back to Doc Coddle talking to Adama and the bridge crew about quarantine procedures. Doc Coddle sort of says, can we bring the beacon on board, the source of the pathogen? That would like help us, sort of diagnose this. And Adama's like, nope, can't bring it on. He also says, Doc Coddle says we should bring the Cylon prisoners on board because their disease is more advanced, and it would give me an idea of how the disease advances for when they die. I can help other people, so I get like a timeline of things.
Yep. I love how matter of fact he is about saying that. Like he just assumes he probably can't save them, but he can study them, and it's not like it's a moment that could have been played as very cold and dispassionate, and it's not really. He's just already assuming I can't help them, but having them here might mean I can help other people.
Yeah, and this would be subtext too. I wonder how the actor thought of it in terms of playing, because you could argue that he was arguing it that way because he's like, I'm not going to try and argue for the humanity of these people right now. I'll just give a utilitarian answer to Adama that Adama will understand in order to bring them over. He may even be thinking like, maybe I'll try and save them, but at least that's the answer that Adama will convince Adama fastest.
We are going to find out that he does try and come up with a treatment and or cure.
Yeah.
So that's distinctly possible. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So it might just be like he understands, he knows how to like convince Adama in a way that's going to make sense rather than on a humanitarian basis, which, as we'll see later on in this episode, does not always work on people in power. Though Adama might have been slightly more sympathetic to it, given where we see later. But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah. We'll get there. Anyways, he's more sympathetic than some. I'll put it that way. Anyways, as the folks are coming back over from the base star, the base star blows up. And I wrote, conveniently destroying the beacon that causes the disease, so we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very like, oh, really?
Yeah, that's like, let's just tie up that plot hole.
Well, that kind of felt like the early warning sign for what my big issue with this episode is going to be. But we'll get there.
We'll get there. But then that ends that section. So yeah, wrapping out like, all right, we don't want to deal with the beacon anymore. We can't have a source of this disease. We'll just end it there. Anyways, we cut over to Baltar on his own base star. And again, we cut back to, and I like that this is a subtle thing that like when we're on the base star with the Galactica crew, it's shot normally. But when we're on the base star with Baltar, it is that sort of like ethereal crossfades and piano music, like the distinct change in tone.
Every single shot is a crossfade. There are no hard cuts for the back and forth. It lends the entire thing a slightly more surreal quality. Yeah. I really like how they're doing that.
Yeah, I really like it. It's really kind of nice. We have Baltar sleeping naked on his little bed thing. I mean, why not? I guess, when in Rome. And with no blanket, I don't think either. I don't remember there being a blanket.
We don't know how warm or cold it is there.
Yeah, so. It's like, do they have temperature controls? One would presume. Anyways,
I'd want a blanket anyway, just for comfort, but that's me.
Deanna, or the Deanna, presumably the Deanna we've been dealing with, and Caprica 6 come in and basically Deanna's like, how long have you been planning to betray us, Gaius? And so we know that Caprica 6 did not keep this information to herself, obviously told Deanna about the beacon and presumably the rest of the Cylons.
Yeah.
So, because we, at the end of last episode, Baltar withheld that information, knowing that he would be accused, as he currently is, of intentionally leading them there. But yes, he tries to tell them that very feebly. He like tries to like yada yada is like, oh yeah, I it wasn't me, I was wrong. I hope you consider this my sincerest apologies. I accept full responsibility. But in good news, I have a theory. Twitch Deanna and like Caprica 6 like, no, you don't get to yada yada that shit. We believe you knew it was out there. And so a Centurion comes in and basically takes Baltar, and Deanna says, sorry guys, it would have been simpler if you had told the truth. We intend to find out. So
yep,
they don't believe shit from him.
So, which
fair.
Nobody should.
Yeah, absolutely fair. We then cut to Baltar is in his mind palace with Caprica, or Head 6, excuse me. There's a glowy green screen effect around both of them, which was kind of like I was debating if it's like, was that intentional or just a bad green screen effect? Because it kind of works, frankly. So there's like, if you notice when you were watching, there's like a glow around both of them that like I read as like, oh, a weird haziness from like whoever replaced the green screen behind him. But
I didn't notice it.
Oh well, I did.
All right, Miss Filmmaker. Jeez. You want to drop some names while we're here?
Yeah. No, it's one of those things like I weirdly notice in like this era of filmmaking, like even Star Trek Enterprise, because in older Star Trek shows, the Starfield was like a fabric with lights on it that they used to do when they were at warp or whatever, like that was a practical effect. Whereas in Star Trek Enterprise, they switched to a green screen out the window, and you can see when like the characters stand in front of the green screen, you can kind of see a little green outline because of that age of green screen effects was not as good. So yeah. Anyways, which like on a CRT TV, which is what people were watching on, no one noticed. You just notice now in HD. So Head 6 is basically telling Baltar, like, it's all in your head because he's complaining about the pain, and we get the impression like, oh, he's being tortured. And, Head 6 is just saying this is just normal neural impulses that can even be pleasant if you like think about them differently. But cut to reality, Diana is torturing Baltar, and she's like being like the whole like, good cop. It's like, I don't want to do this to you, sort of thing. You're making me do it to you. Sort of thing. Well, and Caprica 6 is clearly there and disturbed by it, and Baltar says, I love you.
Yeah. I appreciate that it's a sci-fi'd up torture. Like we're not watching something really visceral happen. Now, like if torture is an uncomfortable thing for you, it's still going to be. But like basically they just have these electrodes attached like at his fingertips, and he's just in pain, broadly speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So while not pleasant, I appreciate that they didn't go with anything more visceral or that more directly maps onto actual torture techniques that get used, because we didn't need that.
Yeah, it's actually one of the better, without spoiling, it's actually one of the better scenes of Stranger Things in this current season that I actually like. They did a torture scene with like 11, and it was actually, I'm like, I don't like torture as like a thing, but the way they did it here was actually fairly interesting. So anyways.
I have no idea if or when I'll get around to that 5th season.
All I will say is I didn't hate it. The first 2 episodes are real blah. The second 2 are much better. And it is hard to buy these actors as kids, like
these adults.
Yeah, some of them have 5 o'clock shadow in some scenes, like very noticeably.
Millie Bobby Brown has a kid.
I know, it's
what
wild.
The hell?
Yeah, it's I do not buy, especially since I'm watching that and then jumping to Welcome to Derry, which is a very similar vibe. It's that Stephen King like small town horror thing, and they have actual kids. So I'm just like, wow. Such a dichotomy.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna have some other thoughts later on as we continue with this, but I do like this general idea of Head 6 like trying to keep him as present as possible in the mind palace so that he is experiencing as little of the pain as possible. I like that as a dynamic for the scene.
Yes. Yep. We then cut back to the Galactica crew, where we have the humans that were on the base star in quarantine. Hot Dog and Racetrack are sort of like talking about how bored they are with each other, making quarantine jokes. But then Coddle comes in and says, humans are immune to the virus. You're all healthy. So they all head out, but he tells Athena to stay put. And what I found really fascinating, because what happens here, I initially thought like he found that she wasn't immune to the virus, that she had been infected. What actually has happened is that Coddle hasn't even done her blood work yet. And Hilo comes in and he makes the point. He's like, oh, because of who she is, she can wait. Is that what basically you're saying? Coddle, he sort of tells Coddle, like, you tell me the second you know what's going on with her. Which to plays devil's advocate to Coddle. Like, there were more, it's not even may even being like she can wait because of who she is necessarily. It may be like there's just more humans, so it makes more sense to screen them first just as a numbers game. But it is not incorrect for Hilo to point out the sense of slight prejudice there. So
I mean, I feel like the storytelling kind of allows a lot to fall through the gap of we don't know what was involved in these tests. Like, is there a reason he had to wait until getting results on the others before could these things not be done in parallel?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, like, I don't know. I found it to be more interesting had it just been like, oh, he came in and you said you're infected or whatever. Which isn't the case anyways, as you learn later. But like, it does speak to an understandable reason why Hilo would be upset. And as it points out, as we'll come back to later on, it's important that Hilo is the one upset and not Sharon, which I find to be an interesting point, as we'll come back to later on. Anyways, Coddle then goes and checks in on the other Cylon prisoners they have, and he drags out a Doral to test because he says he's the furthest gone. So we get that. But then we have Roslin talking to Doc Coddle. And basically he sort of describes, we can keep the Cylons alive. Basically what he's learned is like, you can't cure them, but you can keep them alive. Essentially, this is an old human disease that humans years ago developed an immunity to. However, the Cylons will basically need regular injections of this, or they will die. You can't just cure them outright, and you can't really fix what they're going through.
Yeah, he can keep them from getting worse and get them a little better than they are, but he can't cure them.
Yes. And I just wrote down like, oh, it's an interesting HIV metaphor of a disease that affects a particular group that they'll need regular injections for. You know what I mean? So it's
probably unintentional in this case, I suspect.
Yeah, I would.
I don't think anything else maps.
No, I mean, it's not a 1-for-1, nor do I think it should be, but there is something to be said of like a disease that specifically targets a community and it being used against that community, as we'll talk about later. And also an element of like how it like marginalizes someone like Sharon, for example, in an interesting way. I think there's like an interesting kind of element to it there. So it's not a 1-for-1, nor do I think and I think correctly, even if the writers did intend it as an HIV metaphor, they don't try to make it very overtly like we're trying to 1-to-1 it, like Star Trek Enterprise is, to use another one, tried to do with some of its HIV metaphors and ways that made it very messy by trying to make it very obviously this is HIV. But it is, I don't know, there's an interesting parallel there that is worth drawing out without saying this is the same exact thing. So anyways, Apollo, who was there, starts making the argument. It's like, well, is there any reason to keep them alive? And there's, I forget who makes the argument, but there's the argument made like, well, we can interrogate them for intelligence. Oh, Raza makes this. We interrogate them for intelligence. We can dangle the vaccine. They don't know it's a stopgap, but not a cure. So we can sort of offer the cure to them and use that as a thing to get them to open up. But Apollo sort of argues like, well, they pray when they were on the infected ship. We saw them praying. And I think Athena says there was a specific prayer that means that they say when they know they're not going to download and they're ready to die. So, they're already ready to die. And Rosalind says, well, yes, they may be ready to die, but some might be ready to jump at a second chance. So Apollo is very, very let them die sort of mentality.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. But then we bring in
to a degree that feels slightly manufactured, if I'm honest, but it's not too. It's they don't push it so far as to be out of character, but it does feel like he has been pushed farther to one edge of his character than he should have drifted to naturally.
Yes. It honestly feels like it would have been better coming from, especially because it's been brought up as a point later on, coming from a character who was on New Caprica, like a Starbuck or something. Though Starbuck being in that room would be a little weird.
Yeah, there really would be no justification for why she's there.
Yeah, it's like it's an argument that feels like it needed to be from a character from New Caprica, but they couldn't really justify it. So Apollo's going to be the one who is going to be the mouthpiece for this idea, I guess, is basically what I think the writers kind of settled on. It's like, we need someone to be saying this stuff for the idea of the episode to come across, and he's the only one that makes sense to do it. So huzzah. He gets it. Anyways, we then cut to a scene where they have brought in a Simon model, and he's being interrogated. He's clearly sort of taken up the offer of the supposed cure.
Thank you for reminding me what the hell his name was. I could not remember.
Yep, no, it is Simon. But yes, he basically tells them everything about, like, we were abandoned by the other Cylons. And there's the fear of the disease spreading basically to the resurrection ship through a feedback component. And he also mentions that they were there looking for the Lionhead Nebula that Baltar said would point the way to Earth. So now everyone's kind of surprised at this new piece of information that Baltar is not only still alive, but with the Cylons and helping them go to Earth.
Yep.
Into which we finally get a justification for why the Cylons want to go to Earth, and they say, we want a new beginning, much like you. Instead of the justification, which is weak sauce. Very weak sauce.
I wouldn't count that as a motive, because, like, is there no other goddamn planet?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You know what I mean? Like the reason. So just to like talk about it a little bit, like the reason that humanity was looking for Earth is that, like, habitable planets are very rare, hence why, like, New Caprica was such a big deal. It's like, hey, this is not a fully inhabitable, we can live like in this tiny little area on this planet. It's going to be a shit planet to live on, but we can. So that's why that's where there's a whole argument of settling there. And presumably all of the other, like, planets were for humanity were Cylon controlled or irradiated, but the Cylons clearly can live there. Like, why can't they go there? And the
Cylons could live there. There has been reference to a Cylon homeworld, even though we haven't seen it, with the Resistance having been evacuated from Caprica Classic. They could have just gone back there. Like, saying we want a new beginning doesn't answer shit, because it's not their best or only option for a place to settle. There has to be a reason they want to go there specifically, which is absolutely not covered in this.
Yes. So yeah, I think that's kind of weak sauce justification there.
We legitimately better get a more thorough explanation for why they want to go to Earth than that. Because if that's all we get, oh, buddy, no. That better not be it. Because if that's it, fuck off.
I honestly do not remember.
Shit.
Let's see. But then Simon's like, all right, gave me the information. You said there was a cure. Doc Connell takes him away to get the medicine. And Apollo says, I think I might have found a way to solve our problem. We can wipe out and destroy the entire Cylon race. So this brings us to the genocide discussion. We jump over to Colonial 1, where we have Rosalind, Adama, Apollo, and Hilo. And Apollo basically Adama describes the plan. Someone describes the plan, but basically they will start lure the Cylon fleet in, like, with some bait. And then once the fleet's in range, they'll know there'll be a resurrection ship nearby, because they wouldn't fly in without a resurrection ship. And then they, at that point, will execute their infected prisoners. They'll download on the resurrection ship, infecting all the rest of the Cylons, thereby causing them to all potentially die, causing essentially a genocide. yes, Hilo brings up the word genocide. He sort of says, okay, so it's genocide. So that's what we're about now. Apollo makes the argument, well, they have no fathers, no brothers, no sons. They're just machines. They're not really people. And Hilo brings up, well, I had a daughter. And Apollo argues, well, she was half human. These things are dangerous. But Hilo says, you can rationalize it any way you want. We do this. We wipe out the race. We're no worse than they are. Roslin makes the point of like, I disagree. They started this. They're the ones that tried to wipe us out. And that's what they've been trying to do. And then Hilo brings up, well, they tried to live with us on New Caprica. To which Roslin goes, you weren't there. So out of respect for the hundreds of men and women that you served with who live there, I will forget you said that. You would do well to remember Cylons are a mortal threat to the survival of the human race. And then Hilo makes the argument, I'm talking about right and wrong, losing a piece of our souls. No one wants to hear that, right? So let's keep this on me. Yeah, I married a Cylon who walked through house. She's not half anything. She made a choice to be here. She made a choice to help us. There could be more like them, so we might be killing all of them. And he then, and I love this moment a lot, actually. He says, wiping them out would be a crime against, pauses for a second, and then reiterates a crime against humanity, which I love that pause a lot. And Apollo says they're not human, they're programmed. And then Roslin says they'll take it under advisement. So I'll just make my point and then I'll toss it to you. But like the reason I love that pause and that he because he could have just said like it's a crime against humanity. But by saying like pause, it means he thought about it and then he like stated it. It's like he's not saying it's a crime against Cylons, it's a crime against humanity. Like by inflicting a genocide, by doing this thing, we are also hurting. We're not just genociding them, we are hurting a piece of ourselves. And this sort of idea of like, yeah, those who cause the pain, obviously they are not the main victims of the thing, quite obviously, but this is often something that you see of like how this, like there's a haunting of even oppressors of like how this like affects them and tears a piece of how they become less human in a way through inflicting said violence on others, which I think is just an interesting idea. So
honestly, for me, Roslin saved this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of getting pissed off
at Hilo.
Yeah, actually, really? At Hilo and not because of the argument he was making, but the way the show was having him make it. Because it's a lot of platitudes. It's a lot of like appeals to shit that I don't care about. Like, what was it? We'd be no different than they are. I don't fucking care. We lose a piece of our souls. Shut the fuck up. Like these are platitudes that I don't need held over these conversations. They are things, they are borderline thought terminating cliches at this point. These ideas, we'll be no better than them. We'll lose a part of our souls. What'll this do to us? The one argument that he makes that is a good argument is to say Sharon is proof they are not all necessarily like that.
I do think that
we have no way of knowing how many people are like her and would make her choice, and we're going to rob them of the chance to do that. That is his one good, tangible argument. So I don't want to say that I was against everything he said, but I got really annoyed at what, to me, especially at this point in time, because again, I'm old and jaded. I'm just at an age where these platitudes not only don't impact me, they piss me off because they don't feel like thoughts. They feel like what you say when you don't have a thought, you only have a feeling. And so you say these things to try and justify your feelings in a situation where you need to be making fully formed arguments. And he does on that one point, but it was so helpful for me for this scene. For Roslin to when he says, like, you know, they did try and live with us, for her to look him dead in the eye and basically say, you weren't there, shut the fuck up. Because we had this conversation a couple episodes back about how the way that a lot of this stuff gets talked about and framed is the idea of like, oh, well, the people who were directly impacted shouldn't be involved in the decision because they're too emotionally tied to it. And you're objective if you weren't there. Fuck off. If you weren't there, you don't know what it was like. And I like that she basically looked him in the eye and said as much. Don't invoke that. You weren't there, so don't tell me what they were there to do. Now, to be really clear, my annoyance with Hilo is not because I am in favor of the argument for genocide. I'm not. I was annoyed with Hilo because I wanted a better argument against it than most of what he gave. That was what annoyed me. It helped when he got to the back end and made that point about how I even wrote it down. She's a person, they are a race of people. Because Apollo especially are talking about them in the broadest possible sense, dehumanizing them, calling them machines, treating them like a monolith and a single entity, where he brings it back down to the reality of they are made up of people and any one person could make a different choice. Now, this show isn't doing that, and this episode isn't doing what I'm about to say, but you do have to be careful about over applying that logic, because then you're just giving benefit of the doubt to people who want to wipe you out, and that's how we get fucking Trump in office. But regardless, my frustration was just that the first things that he launches out with, and the point that he hits more, are just these, to me at this point, these generic platitudes and these philosophical dead ends that have very little meaning behind them as his basis. Because especially at this point in my life, I am a consequentialist. I don't care about the taint on somebody's soul. That is between you and your God. Don't bring that to a debate with me. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, so my thing with that, and this is a whole other conversation, but like that element of like this would be a crime against humanity, that pause bit that I really liked. Like there's a lot of discussions too on the way that like oppressor violence also dehumanizes the oppressor. There's a lot of like really interesting stuff, which is why I really, really liked that moment as a iteration. And it was like a subtle way to make some of the arguments that he was making of saying this is a crime, pause against humanity. Like we're doing this against ourselves if we do this, not just against the selves.
Like the pause was good. The pause didn't hit me the way it hit you, but you explained why it worked so well for you incredibly well. And I don't have issue with that. Again, it's like the front half of his stuff. I want to just get rid of.
Yeah, well, let me make my point.
All right. Fine.
Jerk. Which is that like I don't mind it as a scene, because I agree with you. He is making kind of platitudes, and I like that they are unconvincing, because I do see people make these types of arguments even today that like are not convincing the people who are actually in front of you. So like how do you like, he's not wrong on any of these points. But when you're talking to a person who you need to convince, and the ultimate point is like you're trying to convince that person who has the ability to cause harm to stop. You need to be thinking within their logic. So I liked that we get a display of him making arguments that are, yes, you're saying platitudes, but like for me, he is not wrong in his arguments at any point.
He's not wrong.
But they fail because they are in no way going to convince Rosalind for all the reasons that we see. And Rosalind's response is the like not the correct response, but it is a correct response for her character based on her experiences. So like his things fail, and I really liked seeing that. And I like seeing the one that does get purchased is the one that you pointed to, was when he's actually like talking about like she made a different choice. Now I don't think that is like ideologically the strongest argument. It shouldn't be incumbent on you not doing a genocide because people may choose different. Like you should just not do a genocide because it's wrong on its face, and also it is they are people regardless. Like that's just the fact. But that is not an argument that convinces people who are in that position, who have already started to dehumanize. So if you're going to like actually try to materially like have a material thing that you're trying to do, which is stop this from happening, you may not need to make the strongest ideological argument, but the strongest logical argument for the person that you are facing. And so that's why I really, really like this scene. It's a thing I think a lot of people today could understand a little bit more to a degree, without going too deep into that, because that'll cause a whole other thing, but is a thing that I think is important to recognize. And I really, really liked that. And then on top of that, the nice like little cherry on top was that like pause moment there, because that was a subtle way to getting at this whole thing about like this does also hurt us in a very like philosophical, like spiritual sense that I actually do think is really important when talking about this stuff. But it is not, but it is stuff that is best left for like talking about systems and how all these things haunt systems in like a philosophical sense, if you're like writing about it in academia and how people discuss and dehumanize, when you're actually making an argument in the room, not very helpful. You know what I mean? I can make all the academic arguments against genocide when I'm in a room, but it's not going to convince somebody.
Yeah, look, understand. I have no problem with the basic premise of you do I'm not the saying right you thing. Did.
Yeah.
No, I know, but just for clarity, I don't, there's nothing wrong with making the argument you do the right thing because it's the right thing. My all-time favorite speech from Doctor Who basically amounts to that.
I do what I do because it's right, because it's decent, and above all, it's kind.
At the same time, you know, while I can agree with that, that's not what you come to an argument with.
No, exactly. But that's why I think it's interesting, because like you just like the scene because his arguments are weak, and I like the scene because his arguments are weak, which I think is an interesting thing to showcase, because the scene handles his bad arguments well. It doesn't convince fucking anybody in that room until he makes an argument that just moves it a smidge. Like it doesn't even convince Rosalind, as we see later on, but at least gets her to like think about it a little bit more. The one argument that he made at the end there, like that argument at least like got her to like consider it. Didn't change the outcome, but at least got her to consider it, which I think is funny, because
I think we basically have the same takeaways from the scene, but just kind of feel differently about it. And I wonder how much of that just comes down to the fact that I am over a decade older than you, and I'm just a jaded bitch.
Well, I'm jaded too. I just think, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things where I don't want to get too far into it, but yeah.
I'm not saying you're not jaded, but you do not yet know 40's jaded. You will. Fair. It's not the same.
Yeah, fair enough. I've
been jaded since I was 13. It ain't the same. It changes.
That's fair. I just am like I've seen this. I have seen. Let me put it this way. Maybe this is the best way to put it. I have seen.
The TV Glow.
Yes, I saw the TV Glow. I've seen I've seen the kind of person Hilo is in real life, and I see them, and I see a version of him also too that is much angrier, understandably so, but not understanding why they're not getting anywhere with that anger. And I'm like, and I see it. Like Hilo's kind of he's a nice little sweet boy. There are people like him who are also, again, for understandable reasons, very, very angry, but like they don't get anywhere and they just rage and rage and rage. And I'm like, your feeling is not wrong. I understand it. And I'm not telling you not to feel it, but I'm also saying if we're going to seek material change, these are the things you need to try to do to focus that. And I like this scene displaying that, again, to the very, very sweet boy of Hilo. There's many more dynamics to this than this scene gets to, but there is a kernel of it that I see that I'm like, I understand it. Anyways, we'll end there, because otherwise we'll get into other things that would make this much more controversial. Anyways, let us focus on to the next scene. We jump over to Baltar is continuing to get tortured. Head 6 is in his head, and again is making the argument that you said we were talking about earlier. He's like, I can guide you through it. I'll do anything to help you here. Your mind, like, and she makes this thing a point of saying, you know, your mind wanders when you make love to me. I know it, that it's the nature of the mind to wander. You separate your mind from your body. And I like that's such an interesting way to put it. It was like, hey, I know you it's like, oh, I know you don't not with me with sex. So it's like, this is how I know your mind isn't where your body is. It's like appealing to his ego and his like lack of caring for women to like explain to an audience mind body separation.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
But of course.
Yeah.
That means that this just legit becomes a torture /
sex scene. Head 6 basically starts having sex with Baltar. Yay, female sexualization.
Look, I will say that when it is Head 6, it is slightly better than when it happens to
Caprica 6 and other
Caprica 6 or Deanna or Sharon or Athena or, you know, a lot of women in this show, especially the Cylon women. That having been said, I'm still tired of it. Like this show has just burnt me out on the overt sexualization of its women characters, that even the one that it has the best justification for doing it with, I'm still like, this shit again? Okay, fine.
It is interesting, just random aside, it just made me sort of realize it is a lot with these Cylon women, and not any of the, like, Starbuck doesn't really, and she has that sort of tough boy tomboy thing going on too, but
yeah, no, they were too busy traumatizing her.
Yes, but that there is an element of it that, like, I'm not going to make the essay on it now, but there's an interesting element of, like, oh, there's an exoticization of, like, you know how, like, people will exoticize people that are racialized, sort of like the Orientalism and shit like that, or like lusting after, like, black women or whatever that happens,
or trans women,
trans women, exactly. It kind of is a similar thing that the show itself is doing to the Cylons.
Yeah, the most
probably doesn't help with the fact that Sharon is a woman of color either. So yeah.
No, not really. The most sexualized human character was Ellen.
Yeah. And even then she wasn't, like, usually, like, put on display in the way that
well, no, because she was too old for TV.
Yes. So
she was a cougar, so the joke was that she had a sex drive at all.
Yep. Anyways, becomes a sex scene. And Head Six sort of says, like, hey, use Deanna's faith against her. Because Deanna brings up at one point, God wills the universe according to his design. I don't believe in coincidences, like using that as an argument against Baltar, saying it was just a coincidence that there was the virus. I had nothing to do with it. And so now Baltar sort of, like, somewhat separated from his body, his pain in his body through the sex going on. He basically makes arguments like, I'm a scientist and I believe if God exists, our knowledge of him is imperfect, and our stories are products of men. Our stories of God are products of men, and them being passed down through time and based on a theory, and it's impossible to prove. And yet you argue things in absolutes, like, I don't believe in coincidences. And your belief in God means that you believe that there's a reason for anything, reason for everything. And so you, like, ask, why does he allow death and pain? And you hate yourself for asking the question. But if we knew God's will, recoil, I forget exactly where his point is, like, here. I had to write this all down because it's like a big philosophical argument going on. There's a lot of ways we could talk about it. But, like, she basically says, well, that's faith. And he's like, well, you're trying to find a way to, rationalize the universe, essentially.
I don't dislike this as much as I might think I would have, because he is not as fully dismissive of her notions as I think a lot of scenes would write this.
That's what I figured you would like about this, actually. I explicitly put that in here.
Yeah, which I appreciate that he is, even as he's being tortured and sexed up simultaneously, he is kind of trying to meet her where she's at, where it's like, okay, if there is a God, then our understanding of him is imperfect, which, for the record, is a belief I am 100% on board with. Regardless of what your own level of faith is, I'm kind of the opinion that has to be the foundation of any belief, even if that belief is no belief.
Yep. It almost goes to your belief in Eldritch Horror, which is, like, what you like about Eldritch Horror is, like, we just don't know. We may understand pieces of it or what we can glean from this situation, but we don't know.
Not only do we not know, we can't.
Can't know. Yeah.
Our brains don't fit that much.
I was listening to your discussion on Stranger Things and Vecna, so that was in my brain.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
yeah.
I see.
And, like,
which I agree.
I guess I'll reiterate real quick, just because I talked about this a lot more on the Babylon 5 podcast on Jumpgate, because it came up a bit more. But it is kind of funny for folks who haven't already heard me say this. I do have, like, my own non-specific sort of spiritual beliefs, and they are kind of eldritch in nature. Not that I think that there are, Cthulhu's and horrible cosmic monsters out there. What I mean is, my core fundamental belief from a spiritual realm is that the universe, no matter what it contains, gods, demons, or none of it, no matter what, the universe is too big, too strange, too vast. We will never fit it in our heads. We can't. It's not a question of we don't have the knowledge yet. It's like there's no possible way that everything that is going on could ever fit in one person's head. And I think that's why the universe is amazing and beautiful. that it is too big for us to even properly conceive of what could possibly be going on out there. And that's sort of, from a spiritual sense, that's the spine, that's the foundation of my entire approach to the closest that I come to religious notions. That having, so like I like Baltar sort of meeting her halfway and kind of landing at a similar position along those lines. Although obviously we also know I was gonna say he's an atheist. He's not. He's what I'm gonna call an emergency believer.
Yes.
When shit hits the fan, he suddenly believes.
Yes.
But
fair weather believer, or bad weather believer. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. But so when with Deanna, on the other hand, I do feel like they were slightly oversimplistic with her, because they did make her, doing these absolute statements of like, I believe nothing is coincidence, and it's one of those things that is basic. Her taking that position exists as a feeder line for Baltar to be able to take down the notion of absolute belief like that. It's not the worst constructed version of that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I could see someone saying that legitimately. Yeah.
Oh, no, I could too. It's just one of those things where it's not wrong and it's not bad writing.
You just see the stand of the author of her saying that specifically to set up this later. Like you clearly see the setup payoff thing. Yeah.
There's that, and also just like on a personal level, even though it might not have even been the best way to do the scene, but there's a part of me that wants to go like, okay, you got the nuance on this side of the argument. Could we have some on the other side?
Yeah.
Could we have it? Because there can be nuance on both sides of this conversation. And I guess that's just me wanting a thing that is probably unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but yeah, I do at least get to, I mean, to play the devil's advocate on it, in terms of
course.
I know, because I always do. The Cylons are sort of shown to be in a way that I think relates to what they are as beings, kind of very simplistic in a lot of their understandings of faith and understanding of God. And I chalk that up to, this is what I chalk it up to. And the show, I don't even ever think makes this explicit. I chalk it up to, they are quite literally a very young culture. They have only existed for only a few decades, and generally speaking, have not had a lot of their faiths challenged in any way. So they've just been like sitting like in a feedback loop on their own planet of like, here's our religious beliefs, and then they try to enact it through a genocide because they're religious fundamentalists in a lot of ways, which is why they did the genocide against humanity. And they've never really had to think about anything outside of these sort of like absolutist ideas, and never had to deal with like the situational nuance, which is how you get a lot of the situations that they come up against, like even at like New Caprica. Not to say their like very overt settler colonial strategies and beliefs are right in any way, shape, or form, or justified in any way, shape, or form, but a lot of that is shown to be from their like almost weirdly innocent like religious fundamentalist beliefs that they're putting on. Innocence probably the wrong word, but it's like religious fundamentalism that I think comes from their like youth as a culture within the narrative of the show. And I think the only person that is distinctly different in that sense is Cavill, is the one who is shown to have a more very cynical and clearly atheist views, but like a much more like nuanced view of religion.
See, you say that, and I kind of had the thought as you were talking, I would have fully bought her lines, her absolutist lines, if they had come from Leoben.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So like,
or even Six could have said them. I think probably would have made sense to a degree.
Yeah, like I guess like canonically within the show, Deanna has already been convinced out of a belief system once by 6 and 8, and I think this is even meant to be the same Deanna.
I presume it is. My read was that she never bought like these like the original Boomer and Caprica 6 convinced all the other Cylons. Didn't really convince Deanna though. She went along with it because that's what everyone voted, and like did what she had to do, but like she never actually bought any of that shit.
No, that's fair. No, you're right. That's fair.
So.
But my point being is like there have been variations within individual ones, and I guess I would have it's a line that would have been more suited to the outright fanatics. And not that it doesn't work coming from her. Again, it's just me wishful thinking, like, oh, we could have had nuance on both sides. We had nuance on one side. Yeah. We were almost there.
I think the thing is, like, again, I think like it's a similar thing with Apollo, right? Where it's like it works. Probably would have worked better with a different character making that argument. Like the argument still like it would have worked with these characters much better if they had said this exact same thing. I would have believed it a little bit more. With this character, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but it's teetering on disbelievability because like Deanna has seemed to have a little bit more of a like she clearly is a believer in their religion as opposed to like Cavill. But she does seem to have a little bit more groundedness to her than like she's Leoben.
Generally not one to invoke God in discussions unless somebody else brings it up.
Yes. Yeah. So she seems a little bit more like nuanceable with it versus Six, who like isn't like on the level of like super religious faith of Leoben, but is sort of a much more hardcore religious fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, but it still works for her. It's the same thing with Apollo making his arguments on the other side. So similar writing tactic, I guess. Anyways, the argument, this all ends where Deanna goes to do more torture, which seems to like break Baltar a little bit. Like he had Six, like, stay with me, believe what you're saying. And then Baltar just says, I want you to believe in me. Don't stop. You have to believe in me with all I have left. Tell me you believe in your strength. I believe with you with all my heart. You're an angel of God. I love you with all my heart. And Deanna sort of is taken aback by this.
I'm reserving judgment until I see another scene with her, because so fucking help me if she was like moved by him saying I love you with all my heart while being tortured, I'm gonna be real pissed off.
Mm-hmm. The only
I'm not presuming that happens, but it fucking better not.
The only way, and I'm gonna put a thing here, I do not remember. So this isn't me doing a spoiler on anything. I do not remember. The only way this will work for me, if they justify it this way, is Deanna has probably never heard something like that from someone that she views as a creator. Like humans have always like been the people who wanted to kill them, murder them, even though they were technically their parents to a degree. And now here is one of them saying, you know, I believe in you, which is something she has probably never heard. Not to the point where she's going to be like, I'm on the ball. And if it gets to the point like I Baltar is great now, that would be bad. But if it is a sort of like she was a bit taken aback because it's just a weird thing for him to say in this moment, and it's also like, oh, it's weirdly validating. That hits a little different. You know what I mean?
If I could devil's advocate your devil's advocate.
Sure.
I think the better place to go would be if she says, he said that with such sincerity that I didn't think this entire race was capable of. And she doesn't have it be about him, but have it be kind of like what the argument Hilo was making about Athena, that like, what does this imply that all of them are capable of?
Yeah, because they both dehumanize.
They weren't,
for lack of a better word, deperson. They both deperson the other side. Like humans aren't able to like be in touch with God, therefore they're not human. And humans go, they're machines, therefore we can just murder them. They're not people. So
yeah, I think if this is going to have any lasting impact, that's the way I would go.
We then cut back to Galactica, where we see Athena. And Hilo comes in very happy, and it turns out she's cured. She's actually because she had a half human child inside of her, yada yada yada, fetal blood cells, blah 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 blah. She's immune to the disease. So.
Yeah, and I wrote down this is too easy, and I kept waiting for the twist. There's no twist.
This would have been, and I get why they didn't, which it's disappointing and too easy. What would have been way more interesting to me, and would have been made the HIV metaphor even more apt, was if from now on, she would have to get, like, she wouldn't get worse, because Cottle says, like, the disease doesn't get worse if they get regular injections, but now she would have to, for the rest of the show, or however long until they cure it, get regular injections, which would read much more like HIV metaphor taking something like PrEP. So.
Yeah. Well, no, it wouldn't be PrEP, because PrEP is a preventative.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought PrEP was whatever. What do they take? What do you take if you have HIV?
I don't know what it currently is. I know it was ECT like back in the 90s. I don't know what the current treatment is. I think it's something else now. But no, PrEP is a preventative. You
Oh,
take
okay.
that prior to
Yeah.
engaging in activity where you feel you might be at risk.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, yeah, but anyways, we do have a way to manage HIV now, not necessarily
Yes,
cure
we do.
it. So it would have been more akin to that, which I would have really liked. It would have made the metaphor a little bit more one-to-one. But it would have been way more interesting. So
Well, also, it would have been consequences of any kind, and we'll come back
yeah.
to that when we get to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, she's like, Hera saved my life. And Hilo Hilo's like, oh well, we should, share this, and basically Hilo tells her about the genocide plan.
Yes.
We then cut over to Roslin and Adama, and Adama basically says, there's a point I'd like to make. There's a law forbidding me to use biological weapons without a presidential order, which Ron's like, meaning you're passing the buck to me. And he's like, on this one, yes.
I just like that he's just upfront, like, yeah.
This is all you. I am making the genocide choice. But he does bring up, like, Hilo's right on one thing. If we start destroying entire races, we're liable to tear up a piece of a man's soul, which again, it works from Adama. It is like a philosophical point that he would be kind of interested in. He's always trying to be at least more thoughtful in that sort of realm. And Roslin makes the very practical consideration of, like, they're coming to Earth, though they want to destroy us all. Those are the stakes, always have been, Bill. So yeah, I mean, she has not moved. She's not correct in terms of making the genocide, but she is correct in articulating the stakes here. So
yeah.
Which again, I'll point it out to a degree. I guess this is the place to do it. Like, the one aspect of this that does not map on correctly to a lot of discussions of genocide is not usually the one wielded by the one who is the victim of another genocide first, and usually have the power to enact it.
Yeah, no, it isn't. And like, I'm slightly torn on the show's use of the word genocide at all. Because, like, on the one hand, if you're gonna deal with something this big, you should probably be okay using the big adult words for it. But at the same time, it is one of those situations where the specific circumstances of the sci-fi setting cannot and will never map on, which means the very nature of an argument for or against genocide in this world bears no resemblance to the conversation in the world that we live in, which I don't want to say it like muddies the waters. That's like giving too much credit for the impact of a show like this.
The inherent problem with it is, like, usually how people who commit a genocide in our real life argue is, like, it's us or them. Like, we need to kill them to protect ourselves. Is one way that they will argue that they do it. And they create a whole systemic structure to try and do this. Is like set like colonial shit of, like, we need to kill them to save ourselves, and they'll vilify them, dehumanize them, cast them as, like, terrorists or whatever, to all justify killing them. And it's all justified in the us versus them. Like, if we don't kill them, they'll kill us, sort of thing. But that is not actually true in real life. It is a more powerful nation, state, group, whatever, saying that to justify enacting its project of genocide, generally speaking. Whereas in this world, it is technically, to a degree, true that it is a much more realistic us versus them. Again, Hilo makes the argument, like, they're not all like that necessarily, but there's a much more articulable case of, yes, it is us versus them, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, like, both sides have undergone actions that make it clear that, broadly speaking, not on the level of every individual, but broadly speaking, each of these forces would 100% wipe out every single last one of the other side if they could,
and have the capability to do so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the first time the humans have the capability of doing it with silence, but, like, the silence they backed off for a bit, but also, remaining as an impressive occupying force. So, like, not that much better. Yeah, it's one of those situations where, like, that, and I definitely would not have felt this way at the time, because I didn't have, like, a real appreciation for how many active genocides have happened in my lifetime and are happening as we record. But watching it now, part of me just worries that naming it what admittedly what it is. So I'm not saying it's an inaccurate term to use, but there's a part of me that can't help but feel like naming it that is taking on the weight of more than this show can carry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just a bad. Yeah, I think it's just the framing of this just doesn't make it work super well. Like I get what they're going for, and then there's arguments in there that I do like, but it just does not map on neatly in a way that makes it a little awkward. So
yeah. It's not awful. It's not because trust me, this could have been so bad.
Been Interstellar Song Contest.
It's not.
Yeah,
but it is just slightly off center where it's like.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Interstellar Song Contest. Jesus
Christ. Good God, no. Jesus. Warn me before you're going to bring that shit up. Oh, my God.
Yeah. We've talked about that in other episodes, but I'm talking about the Doctor Who episodes for listeners who may not know.
Yeah.
If we don't need to go into explaining it, but just.
No, we do not. If folks don't know what that is, I spend a very lengthy time on the Council of Geeks main channel explaining why that is in contention for possibly the worst Doctor Who episode ever. I think I'm going to consider it my second worst behind only one other and only by a slim margin. But holy.
That's speaking of an episode that does make the metaphors 1-to-1 and fucks it up wildly. Jesus Christ. That one very clear is not only Eurovision, but talking about Israel, Palestine. And like,
and talking about it
that shit
real badly. Real badly. And somehow made worse for the fact that it clearly thinks it's talking about it well. It's like, okay, moving on.
That's a whole other side.
I can't anymore. God.
Blood pressure rising. Anyways, we then go to see the genocide plan being. I missed a whole scene. Sorry. Excuse me. There's a scene. We kind of jump between two scenes here. I'll stay on the Adama Raza one here. Adama makes the argument like posterity won't look too kindly on genocide, and Rosalind argues you're making the assumption that posterity will define this as a genocide. Which
the winners write the history books.
Yeah, which I'm like, I think what Rosalind means is like, oh, maybe they won't see it as a genocide. I'm like, but it does speak to that exactly. Winners write the history books. They define how it's been seen. So. Just look at America and how we don't necessarily talk about what happened to the fucking indigenous tribes here in the United States as a genocide all the time, even though it very much was.
No, it 100% was.
Yes, 100% was. But yes, Roslin says, as president, I authorize biological weapons. So she does it. And Adama says, so say we all. But then, okay, the other scene that happens here is Hilo, right after he tells Athena about the genocide plan. He says they're talking about genociding your entire race, and Athena says, I made a choice to wear this uniform to be a person. And Hilo says, you were a person before that uniform. I fell in love with you. You don't have to prove that. And Athena's response, very assertively, is, I have to prove it every day. My people, my whole race may be wiped out, but this island will keep her word, even if it means she's the last Cylon in the universe. Can a human being do that?
I like this a lot, and I like it for the same reason I liked when Rosalind pushed back on Hilo before. And it's not because Hilo's wrong. Mm-hmm. He's not. But because of who he's talking to, he is talking like he's the authority, and he's not. He wasn't the authority on what happened on New Caprica, and he's not the authority on what Athena's experience is or what her choices mean. That's for her to decide. And I like that, like, not overly harshly, but she does kind of put her foot down and like, you don't get to define me. Mm-hmm. You don't get to decide what my connection to this act is. That's mine. Mm-hmm. I understand if you want me to feel a certain way, but like, no. That's for me. I get to feel how I feel. You don't get to tell me that.
Yeah, and I also like that it speaks to, like, again, how she is, like, constantly viewed through that prism of, like, she's one of the good ones until she proves herself not to be. and she's very aware of that scrutiny that is placed on her every single fucking day amidst these people. So like that is a very interesting dynamic that I like the show bringing into. And again, it speaks to like Hilo being the like armchair warrior of like, yeah, you're not ideologically wrong, but you're like talking down to people and not making the act, like not meeting people where they're at to have the conversation. And speak from your armchair all day long about the theory, and even get self fucking righteous about it, but it's not going to convince people. So.
You think that being right makes you bulletproof, and it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. It's because how do you agitate for material change? Anyways, we then jump to the genocide plan being enacted. So we start to see it go down. You know, they fly in, base stars come in, they're about to start a whole battle.
No, you skip something.
What did I
skip? Something big that happens before that.
Oh, what did I skip?
Hilo.
Oh, that's what I was gonna get to right here.
But like chronologically, that happens before they, because you just said the base stars come in. Like, no. What he does happens before that.
Oh,
it's a plot. It's a plot point.
Oh, is it?
It has to be. If it's not in terms of what is shown, then they fucked up.
Well, what I have in my notes is that they genocide plan starts to be enacted. They set out the bait. Athena comes in and said, "Let's do this." And then the base stars take the bait. Then we see Hilo sneaking to the prisoner section to like readjust something on some wires that we'll see what he's doing later. Then Adama says the order, terminate the prisoners.
If it is shown in that order, then they fucked up. Because it is a plot point that. Okay, so spoiler, folks.
You say what you're gonna say. I'm gonna double check.
They are about to find out that the prisoners are already dead, and were already dead before the base stars and the resurrect. Because the base stars show up with the resurrection ship.
Well, this was actually one of my points that I thought was weird. So I think I might be correct. Yes.
Okay, so they fucked up because it is literally crucial to the plot that they were already dead before the base stars and the resurrection ship showed up. So if the order of events that they showed was base stars and resurrection ship showed up, and then Hilo does
I
this
see
thing.
What you're saying. You may be correct. Never mind. I may have fucked up. I was thinking of something else that was an issue that I had with this.
Okay. Because Hilo goes to this, it looks like a fuse box.
Yes.
And swaps some stuff around. We won't know what that means until later. Jesse's checking.
Okay, I'm checking. So the reason I got messed up because I wrote it down weirdly. We see Hilo messing with the box. He hasn't done anything yet. Then Raiders fly in. Literally, it cuts from the box to Raiders flying in to check in on the situation.
Yeah, but the Raiders are the scouts, and the base ship comes later.
Yes.
Okay. So they didn't fuck up. You fucked up.
Yes, I just took my notes down because I saw the visual and I just wrote my notes. Oh, base stars fly in or whatever. But it was the order is slightly different. Raiders to the scouts first. So theoretically, the resurrection ship was not there. What I did think was weird, and it's just a bit of dramatic. It's just for drama. But what I did think was weird is Hilo basically does try to kill the prisoners and suffocates them before the base stars come in. But then Adama gives the order, terminate the prisoners, and we see Apollo is the one leading the group going in to shoot the prisoners. The thing I thought was weird is there's no humans already in if you have this plan, I would have already stationed people in the room with the prisoners to shoot them.
Yeah, that is a complete.
So that's just done. So there's a little like drama of like Apollo walking there, and also so Hilo keeps his hand clean of killing any humans in this act, which would have made it messier. I think Hilo probably could have still justified it, but then he would have had to kill humans, and that would have been morally more complicated.
Well, we'll get to the end. We'll get to the end,
and then B. It leads into that, right? If he had killed humans, it would have not been able to be clean at the end. And then B, this is just a silly thing because they wanted an actor to be there that they is part of this, but like I was like, why isn't Apollo part of the Viper team? It was just like they just wanted Apollo to be a face to be the one that walking down the hallway for the shot. But I'm like, in real life, it would have been some random, Marines.
It just would have been the Marines.
Yeah. Well, it's a nitpick, but it was just a thing. Anyways, they do walk in and the prisoners are already dead, so they jump away. And we do get our classic. They jump away right as the missiles are about to hit.
Yeah, they jump and the missiles whoosh.
Yeah, every time.
Every time. Look, it's a great shot, but damn, do they overuse it?
Great shot once.
You could even use it other times, but it's every time they jump away from Cylons when they're being fired at. Every time, damn it, man.
Yeah. Anyways, we then cut to a little while later. Hilo and Athena are talking. Hilo says, they'll be coming for me. It always feels like they're coming for one of us. I'm not a traitor. I love the ship. Besides you, the first thing I want to see any morning are the lights in that CIC. I did what I thought was right. And if I was wrong, I can live with that if it's a mistake. It's you I can't live without. And Athena says, I'll always love you, Hilo. Scene, I like. In isolation.
I do like this scene. The show is clearly not going to grapple with the fact that he made the decision to kill 5 people that are people he made an argument are in fact people. Show doesn't seem to want to grapple with that at all. But as far as their dynamic goes, this is a good scene.
Yes. We then cut to Roslyn and Adama sharing a drink. We basically learned that they died of asphyxiation. There was no oxygen in the room, and that someone did this manually. And that there's gonna, Roslyn says that, well, is there gonna be an investigation? There's clearly only a couple people, clearly meaning Hilo and Athena, that could have been the ones to do this. And Adama says he's closing the book on this. Roslyn says, literally, how convenient, which is funny because it's the same note that I had.
Which means,
zero
consequences to this entire fucking plot.
Yep.
None. Not a single lasting consequence to a species endangering disease, to characters deciding that it's okay to enact a genocide, to one character going against his orders and deciding to kill 5 people in order to save the enemy as far as everyone else is concerned. No consequences for fucking any of it. They even destroyed the beacon.
Yep, that was the other thing I was going to point out. They went out of the way to destroy the beacon so you can't get that disease back.
Yeah, there's literally zero consequence to this. And after... Okay, so a couple episodes ago, we did Collaborators, and I was so happy that the show let a messy situation be messy, because holy crap, the number of times the show gets a wonderfully morally complex messy situation, but then overly clarifies it, makes it morally simple, removes the gray, or in this case, removes the fucking consequences. What happened? Nothing. As far as lasting consequences, nothing fucking happened.
Yep.
God damn it. And this is sort of my other thing. Why I think this feeds into my notion that should they be dabbling in the notions of talking about genocide in an episode with zero consequences of all fucking things?
I do not disagree for a second there. Yep.
Oh, God damn it, man.
One thing I did find somewhat interesting though, just to not in a completely negative note, I did find this bit interesting, which is Dama says Cottle's report that the virus was an accidental contamination. Somebody sneezed on the beacon and an entire race almost wiped out because of it. And they also find out that the beacon is about 3,000 years old, right around the time where the fleet went to Earth. So yeah. So that's just an interesting little bit.
Well, their wording is around the time the 13th colony left.
Yes. So they know that they're on the right path to Earth as well as the Cylons. But I did just like the idea because you initially postulated that it was an intentional virus to target the Cylons.
Yes, which I'm glad it's not.
Yes, it was just someone sneezed, and because the human Cylons are the whole point of the Cylons are infected and humans are not is because humans built up an immunity, and Cylons, again, going back to them being a literal younger species, do not have that immunity. So
yeah. And so as far as the explanation for where the disease came from, I actually am totally down with that. Shit happens, man. Shit happens and horrible consequences. Cool. I'm there for that. Or, would be if there were any fucking consequences to any of this.
Yeah.
But there aren't.
Yep.
Why should we impact the status quo in a show that has been about shaking up the status quo lately? No, let's just have a nice little narrative circle jerk and just go around the cul-de-sac a couple times. God damn it, man.
Yeah, unfortunate. Well, that is it for this episode.
I feel like I'm in a tease and denial relationship with this show. It like keeps intermittently teasing me with like really good stuff, and then it just pulls this shit.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. The only thing I'll say about this, and then we can go into our overall thoughts on the episode. I'm not going to do a spoiler minute. It is just an interesting thing of, this show was written by Ronald D. Moore, as we've talked about before, and his big problem with Star Trek Voyager. And the reason that he often talks about going to do Battlestar Galactica is that Voyager had no consequences. It always hit the reset button at the end of every episode. And I'm just like, you do it just as much. You just make gestures at longer consequences, drain and pain on the ship is facing more weathering.
Yeah, he seems
moral consequences.
He seems to be only interested in the logistical consequences of things, when there should be character dynamic consequences or moral consequences, or somebody does something that should really weigh on them as a person. Nah, none of that.
I think it's just that this is a show that I need to look, because I feel like this is just that era of show that is that interesting weird middle ground for stuff. Babylon 5 was before this and it had consequences, but around this era of TV, it was the shift into more serialized TV, but still had that episodic nature to it, in the way that Lost, it was sort of in that realm as well. And so and it was before I would think this isn't the only one, but Sopranos and Breaking Bad were kind of the ones that were the big things. Mad Men kind of in there too. Are the big
Wire.
The Wire of lasting consequence thing. So it's this interesting period where it's a lot of shows are navigating, figuring out what it meant to be episodic versus serialized. And before we get into now our era of hyper serialization, where everything's serialized, which is too far in the other direction.
Middle ground exists, people. God damn it.
Yeah, and so I feel that's why it's interesting, because it's why we get into these are the shows that are in that middle ground where on the one hand you have completely episodic stuff like Star Trek, Voyager, and other stuff, and then you have your Breaking Bad, but then you have your I would even go for hyper serialized shows pick another one out of that, Star Trek Discovery, you know what I mean, where it's everything's serialized, everything's carrying over every single second. And then all of these shows are in the middle ground, kind of figuring it out. And I would argue something like Breaking Bad was the ones that kind of nailed that style. But Battlestar Galactica is one that didn't nail that style, but is in that sort of realm of figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, what do you think of the whole episode? We kind of touched upon all of it, but what do you think?
I mean the lack of any meaningful consequences. Again, if nothing else, the fact that Hilo made the decision to do what he did should matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't. It just wipes the entire slate clean. And the ending did a lot to sour my opinion on it. Having talked through it now, there is good stuff sprinkled across this. The conversations that are had, while I have some of my nitpicks, they're still way better handled than I think even a lot of shows at the time or even now managed to do with similar topics. So while I have my frustrations, I also want to give it credit for what it did manage to pull off. There's stuff here for sure. Fuck, do I hate that there's no consequence to any of it.
Yep. And I mean, I'm of the same kind of opinion. I am less overtly angry about it as you are, but I think I'm generally the same mind. I think there's a lot of still some good stuff in here, good discussions in here, some nits to pick and things that don't neatly map on, but some good stuff here. But yeah, it's the lack of any consequences to make it work. So
yeah.
All righty then. With all that said, stuff time.
Stuff. Well, you can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. The main thing that funds is the Council of Geeks YouTube channel. If I have my timing right and haven't moved stuff around, then the most recent video should have been about Disney potentially implementing generative AI, and both why that's a bad idea and also why I don't think they're actually going to do it. And my arguments as to why I think that. But I've also recently talked about Stranger Things and why Vecna fucking sucks. And I'll later on the month, again, unless my schedule shifts, I'll be making a video in defense of filler episodes of TV series. So
you mean
that's
episodes with no consequence? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's not what you were arguing. I know
watch it.
I was just making the joke.
Watch it, bitch. So that is what's been going on the main channel. You can also find Council of Geeks on Blue Sky. I also have my secondary channel, Break Room of Geeks, where I talk about whatever I have watched, listened to, read, or played lately. I have no idea what will be going up there. Additionally, I am going to be covering on the main channel, I am going to be covering the release of The War Between the Land and the Sea. The plan is for those reviews to go up on Wednesdays following when the episodes air. So that is the geeky stuff. There is, of course, also the spicy stuff.
And for that, you look for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled W-Y-L-D-E. And you can find increasingly spicy content on YouTube, TikTok.
Listeners, just to let you know, those fuck me eyes that she's giving the camera right now are not what she usually does. She's doing it just for the video.
Well, see, you don't know that because normally I don't pick up the microphone. Normally I just lean down for this.
True,
so
it's true.
You have no idea what my eyes are doing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. As you fillet the microphone. Careful, it's still going up on YouTube. You don't want to get any more trouble.
Oh God, yeah, no, you.
Well,
I'm being good. God damn it!
Are you?
I'm being good enough.
You can find my stuff at YouTube, at Jesse Gender, where I do video essay style of stuff. Probably the most recent video that will be out is why tech oligarchs love Star Trek, which is finally out for all of you.
I was going to say, you have been promising that one for a
It's coming out it'll be out by the time listeners come out for you. It's going to be out like Wednesday, I think.
I was going to say,
Wednesday
you have said it'll be out by the time listeners hear that the last 2 times in a row.
Well, I mean, I'm working on some other stuff, so I'm trying to space them out so I have like this regular content coming out. Anyways, but it will be out by the time you listen to this. I have a secondary channel called Just Gender After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions. I am still probably reviewing It Welcome to Derry, as well as Pluribus, though those will be soon coming to an end, I believe, as well as War Between the Land and the Sea. I'll figure out when I get around to doing those. And then I am also on Nebula, which is the streaming service that houses my movie Identities, as well as the upcoming show Subliminal that I directed an episode of. Remind me, I need to tell you something before we log off about that, by the way, Vera. And
getting all the tea.
You are going to get the tea. And then I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram, and you can find me on Patreon, which helps me pay my bills. Please support me over there and get videos early, like the much fabled Star Trek Tech Oligarch video. You would have gotten that actually 2 or 3 months ago if you had joined my Patreon. All right. With all that said, anything else, Avira?
Nah.
All right, then I hope y'all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.